It was barely past 6 a.m. when I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand, expecting nothing more than a quiet moment with the birds and the rising sun. But what I saw instead was a woman in a leopard print robe standing near my fence, barking orders at a construction crew unloading a giant metal gate. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. But no, there she was. Karen, HOA Karen, with papers in one hand and entitlement in the other, already halfway through drilling into the fence on the side of my yard. Now, let me back up for a second. My name's Grant. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac in northern Arizona, and my backyard is my sanctuary. I moved here 2 years ago after saving up for nearly a decade to finally get some peace and land that's mine. I'd spent weekends planting trees with my dad before he passed, raised a rescue dog named Rocky, and poured every dime I had into making this place feel like home. The last thing I expected was some HOA princess deciding my yard was her shortcut. By 7 a.m., the crew had finished cutting into my fence and installed a full-swing gate, one that opened directly into my garden bed. At 8, Karen waltzed through the gate like she was strolling through a botanical park, tiny poodle in tow, not a care in the world. By 9, it clicked this wasn't some HOA maintenance job. It was a full-on breach. A hostile takeover disguised as community convenience. Rocky, my 90-pound mutt with a bark that could wake the dead, was going ballistic behind the glass. I stepped out, still in my sweats, and walked right up to the gate. Karen turned around, sipping coffee from a thermos and looking smug as ever. "Oh, hi there. Isn't it just lovely? The shortcut's going to be so convenient," she chirped like she hadn't just commissioned a backyard invasion. "You put a gate in my fence?" I asked, blinking. She held up some papers like they were holy scripture. "Technically, it's a shared access point. Standard HOA easement clause, totally normal. The board approved it." I took the papers. They were HOA bylaws, sure. But the clause she was referencing was meant for emergency utility access, not for Karen's morning dog walks. "Karen, this clause says they have to notify and get written consent from homeowners before altering private structures." I never got anything. "Well, you missed the last meeting," she said, like I'd skipped a dentist appointment. "So the board voted, and it passed. We assumed you wouldn't mind." I walked back into the house before I said something I'd regret. My jaw was clenched so tight I thought I might chip a tooth. I called my buddy Luis, municipal attorney, great poker player, and even better at catching BS and legalese. I sent him photos and videos. 5 minutes later, he called me laughing. "Not only is that not legal," he said, "that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Don't touch the gate yet, document everything, and let's file a cease and desist." So I did. I recorded Karen walking through my yard again later that day with a squad of HOA ladies like she was leading a guided tour. One of them stepped on my hydrangeas without so much as a glance. I just filmed. I waited. And that night, Luis stopped by with a bottle of scotch and an idea. "You know," he said, flipping through zoning maps, "you could build a wall. On your side. As long as it's under 8 feet and inside your property line, there's nothing they can do. Might block that little shortcut, though." I laughed. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Not just a wall. A symbol. A statement. A big, beautiful, red brick monument to boundaries and personal space. That night, I stayed up researching local code. Anything under 8 feet was fair game. I found a crew that did overnight commercial builds. Told them it was a surprise for my anniversary. They said they could do it in 3 nights. I told them I needed it in 1. Then I called the local hardware yard and bribed a forklift driver named Rick to get me bricks on site before sundown. The next evening, at exactly 10:50 p.m., 2 trucks rolled in without headlights. The crew moved like shadows, whispering, professional. I led them to the backyard and showed them where to start. They dismantled Karen's gate piece by piece and loaded it into a truck. By midnight, it was gone like it never existed. The air smelled like mortar and fresh opportunity. They worked through the night, laying bricks, embedding vertical iron bars, finishing it with a decorative arch and a brass plaque that read, "Private property, do not enter." I brewed coffee for them around 2 a.m., and we joked about making it taller just to annoy Karen. One of the workers, Derek, said, "I've built for prisons, man. But this is a monument." At 7:15 a.m. sharp, Karen rounded the corner with her dog and saw it. 8 feet of red brick where her gate used to be. She stopped dead. Her jaw dropped. Her poodle barked. and I stepped out onto my porch, coffee in hand, smiling. "Morning, Karen. Lovely day, huh?" She marched up to the wall, furious. "What is this?" "A wall. On my property. Completely legal." Louise helped. She sputtered, threatened HOA action. I showed her the laminated property line map and the code excerpts taped to the wall. She stormed off. That afternoon, the HOA hit me with 3 violation notices: excessive vegetation, an unauthorized structure, and seasonally inappropriate yard ornaments. Yep, they came from my Halloween gnome. I sent them straight to Luis. He responded with a cease and desist harassment, misuse of HOA authority, and evidence of the original trespass. I added photos, videos, timestamps, even screenshots of Karen bragging about the shortcut on the community board. Then came the kicker. I posted the footage of Karen trying to pry off the decorative cap on my wall to Reddit. Titled it, "Karen built a gate into my yard, so I built a wall." She didn't know I had cameras. The video blew up. Thousands of views. Comments poured in. One user dubbed her the brick thief. Another called it HOA karma in real time. Even a local news station reached out for the footage. They aired a short segment called "When Neighbors Go Too Far Blurring Faces, but Not Her Behavior." At the next HOA meeting, Karen came in hot, waving her clipboard like a sword. She accused me of defamation, harassment, cyberbullying. I stood up, binder in hand, and calmly walked the board through the timeline, the evidence, and the law she broke. Luis laid out the legal case, point by point. By the end of it, the board suspended Karen for 60 days, froze her access to HOA funds, and launched a formal review. She walked out without saying a word. Neighbors started coming by. One left a 6-pack on my porch with a note that said, "Thanks for building the wall, both kinds." I hosted a barbecue to celebrate. People brought side dishes, kids played, and for the first time in weeks, my backyard felt like mine again. Karen eventually listed her house. I watched from the porch as a real estate agent placed the sign in her yard. No eye contact. No goodbye. Just a quiet exit. The new neighbors moved in 2 weeks later. Young couple. Friendly. Brought muffins. Asked about the wall. I told them. A neighbor built a gate. I built a wall. She moved out. The guy laughed and said, "That's the most HOA thing I've ever heard." Months passed. The vines grew along the trellis. The wall softened into the landscape. It wasn't a barricade Anna Maria, it was part of the garden. Peace had returned. Not because there wasn't conflict, but because someone finally drew the line. So yeah, that's how a gate turned into a war, and a wall turned into a monument. And if you're ever wondering how to deal with a Karen who thinks your backyard is her shortcut, just remember, sometimes the best argument you can make is 8 feet of brick and a camera rolling. What would you have done? Would you build the wall? Or take it to court? Drop a comment, share your own HOA horror stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more true tales of suburban drama and sweet, sweet justice.